Hello my loves, I'm Ellie Frost. Thank you so much for being on my channel where we are talking about the multi-dimensional approach, which means spiritually, mentally, physically, energetically, to radically and rapidly, and it is rapid in my world, healing and transforming from narcissistic abuse. There are many reasons why we don't do this. We've talked about trauma bonding and the psychic ties and all those things that you can break, but there are much more compelling reasons in us. One of them is not knowing who we would be without the narcissist. In narcissistic abuse, it relies on you self-abandoning, which is why Sovereign, my program, is all about coming home to self. There is such a big part of our identities that are caught up, including some narratives that are not serving you, like, I was abused as a child, so I should always be in these cycles, I have these kinds of wounds. They don't make you a life sentence for narcissists. There are many people in relationships working through codependency but not being abused, right? Sorry. So there's a few things I need to talk to you about. One is your identity is enmeshed, yeah? But it's also a comfort zone. A human being will, just by nature, fall into a comfort zone, right, that is not good for them, but it's still comfortable. And the brain says safe because it's familiar. This is just human nature, right? So as pain tolerance goes up, because things in your life get gradually worse, your boundaries and values and standards are being eroded over time, you're comfortable with it. You're comfortable with abuse. You're comfortable with being neglected. You're comfortable. I know this might be very triggering, but it is absolutely, if you're living in these cycles, not just you're enmeshed and addicted, you've also got a tolerance level for it, right? It doesn't come from that being your experience. Many people in my clients have come from healthy relationships into narcissistic ones. I was abused as a child, but then I healed. And I had a 7-year relationship that was nothing abusive in it at all. It was a beautiful relationship. And it ended in a healthy way, and it was very hard to grieve, and we were best friends, yeah? Years later, I saw his parents in Starbucks and we all cried because I loved that family, yeah? It's not abuse, isn't a recipe for more abuse, yeah? There are predators on the planet that will play on your good nature, play on your vulnerabilities, or not any of those things. Even if you're healed, they'll play on, because they're opportunists, you know, the benefits of being with you. It's not just wounds narcissists target. It's abundance, it's wealth, any financial stuff you have, obviously sexual stuff, kindness, ways you boost their ego, ways you make them feel. In my energy, people tend to make more money and be more abundant because I've got that kind of energy that catalyzes that, right? So there's lots of things that you do transmit energetically that actually benefit the narcissist. They are looking at what they can extract from you. And that's not, now, sometimes, see, your wounds aren't what they extract from you, nor is your empathy. They're just easy access routes. It's like they've got a backstage pass. If you're more wounded, but there's still something they want to extract from you, that they actually need from you. You don't actually need them. But the problem is, you don't know often after these cycles who you'll be. Your whole identity, if you're married, it's your story. It's the identity of a wife or a husband, what it means to be with them. It's the image, the joint fantasy they've actually got you into. If you are in these cycles, your biggest priority is to start to get to know who you are again without them. I remember saying to a client, it's not to wish this on anyone, but she was saying to me, well, I need him for this and I need him for that. And she wasn't in financial hardship, actually. She just was so enmeshed. I said, well, if he died tomorrow, what would you do? That completely stunned her. I wasn't wishing that on him, but what I was saying is, if he didn't exist, who are you? What would you do? You need to know this about yourself. It's easy to break codependency. It's not as technical as everyone is teaching you. In fact, as I keep saying, talking in psychological jargon is keeping everyone stuck because the concepts behind this, what I've spent years developing. Sovereign has taken me years to develop. My hourly rate for what I get for that is nothing compared to what I've put into it. It costs you the equivalent of 1 to 3 therapy sessions. People in that group have literally fired their therapist. Not that I recommend that at all, but because they don't need it. anymore. It's taken years of investment, of time, of engineering, of putting things simply. But what I've found is it actually is so much more simple than what you think. You've got to start with understanding who you are again without them. Not saying we want them to go. I'm saying that, like, most of us, see, it's not ever just about the money to change your life. It's not ever just about how bad you think your conditions are. It's about, you don't know. See, if you knew for a fact who you were on the other side, if you knew what you wanted in life again, if you believed that you could have it, if you had a clear direction, you wouldn't stay so stuck. But most of you are just dealing with what is and not even thinking beyond the identity you've adopted because of, you have been victimized. You know, calling people victims, calling out victims is victim shaming is a very bad thing in our society, because you cannot help it if you've been victimized and targeted. It is an assassination. It's an assassination spiritually, emotionally, physically, financially, in so many ways. It's an assassination. Being victimized is very different to playing the victim, but we do pick up a poverty consciousness, poverty of spirit, poverty of hope, poverty of life mentality, and we end up in a victim mentality where we are trying to now look for another saviour, look for another rescuer, rather than taking our power back. I keep Sovereign at 555. That programme I should cost more, to be honest, because your freedom is priceless. It's priceless. How much is it worth? How much is it worth? How much have I put into it? But the point of that is, you know, why, I'm looking all the time, why won't people change? If they know they can, why won't they change? This is the biggest question. Your freedom isn't priceless to you when you don't know what to do with it. That's the problem. That's the problem. If I said to you, you can spend $555 and radically improve your life, the problem you have isn't really finding the money a lot of the time. Or come into 6 weeks with me and I'll help you heal and change and actually be a match for much better life and relationships. The problem won't be the money. It will be that you don't know what's on the other side. You're not willing to bet on yourself. You don't know who you are. So to you, you might feel like a complete gamble. I can tell you a story, right? I had a lot of success in my life when I was young. And then I moved countries, went through these narcissistic abuse cycles. When I spent a few years in a trailer, no welfare, right? So whatever level of poverty you think you're in, most of you are on welfare and you get your food sorted and a roof over your head. I didn't have that privilege, right? Which made my life extremely hard. And I was ill. What was so fascinating to me, when I was in that trailer, right, people manipulated me even worse, disrespected me so heavily. Didn't matter what I'd done. I'd worked with some of the, really important people in the world. I'd had a really good career. I was one of the highest scoring law students in my country. That's how I got the visa. It was what I was doing in business and, my achievements today. It didn't matter. When I was completely poor, when people thought they could assault me because I was vulnerable, I was a woman on my own in a very vulnerable situation. I had no money, so people thought that was something that they could disrespect. It didn't matter. It didn't matter how clever I'd been. It didn't matter what I'd achieved in my life. It didn't matter even how much money I'd had in the past, because I'd invested that money to come over here. But I mean, I'd done really well for myself at certain points. It didn't matter that I'd had a healthy 7-year relationship where I, had a decent lifestyle of nice people in my life. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. It didn't matter to anyone. Because they thought they were entitled to do whatever they wanted, and they thought I was whatever they thought I was because of circumstances around my life. Look at my top today. I am powerful, strong, grateful, kind, influential, beautiful, all sorts of things. Here's what I want you to know. I started thinking I didn't matter because of the way people were treating me. I started thinking I didn't matter because I couldn't afford to even live half the time. I started thinking I didn't matter no matter what I'd been. But let me tell you the truth. I was no less brilliant in that fucking trailer than I am right now, and I was my whole life. I was no less powerful. I was no less important. I was no less, I'm not saying brilliant. We're all brilliant in our own ways, right? This is, guys, this is not about what you've achieved. It's about who you actually are. You're not here. I teach people all the time, like your life is a divine assignment, not a random event. You're here because there's some magic in you. I was no less powerful because I had no money. And that sounds weird, but it's the fucking truth. But I was giving my power away every day. I was believing these narratives every day. I didn't know who I was anymore. How did I become who I was again? A better version, to be honest, I fucking chose. When I got that $555 together for that program I told you about, which was nothing to do with narcissism, it was just me putting a stake in the ground for my development. I had to evolve. It wasn't logical, but when I was determined, I found a way. The difference was when I claimed my power back, I claimed my own respect back. I demand to be respected in the planet now, no matter what I got and what I haven't, and I won't let people take it away from me, no matter how much they've tried to violate me. I got violated in every way, emotionally, spiritually, sexually, every way, physically. And now I stand in a different energy around it, right? Where I command respect, so I'm an energetic match for respect, but I didn't let what anyone did to victimize me mean anything. I also didn't give my power away to doctors at the time that told me I was about to die. I had a doctor screaming at me because I wasn't going to do his system at one point, that it was suicide. I took my power back. It wasn't, I told you I'd already been a healer my whole life. Like it was my giving upness. Not being willing to find out who I wanted to be on the other side. You see, I teach people in Sovereign, you belong where you choose to belong. I put myself in rooms of people who had a lot more money than me, invested in personal development, and I could have looked at everything different about them, us and them, because for them, they were moaning about investments that they could easily put on credit cards, and they were just scared about telling their husbands sometimes, and I was doing it at a time when it was like life and death, or it felt like it was for me. I felt so different. They weren't suffering from PTSD. They hadn't gone through the horrific things I'd gone through. I had to start seeing what's the same. What's the same? We both want to grow and develop. What's the same? We're both choosing ourselves. What's the same? Anything's possible for all of us when we decide. So who would you be without the narcissist? That's the question you don't know. So you're not going to make a bet. You're not going to make a decision, an investment on someone you don't even know what it is. Who do you want to be? Because a lot of it is like guided by your intuition and your choice. I want to be healthy. I want to be vibrant. I want to go and dance the night away. I want to travel. I want to read books. I want to be at peace. I want to meet people that actually get me. I want to do things. I want to find out what I can do. Until you start not letting the world tell you who you are anymore and decide to claim it for yourself, you won't bet on yourself. The thing that's so fascinating to me is when you give people opportunities, but they'll make a million excuses for it. Why? Because if you gave me the opportunity I give people here, I would have grabbed it by the balls. I had to go around years of development, years of classes, years of things that did not solve the biggest problem I had. Why don't people grab it? Because you don't know who you'll be on the other side. But that's something you can actually start working on now. That's something you can work on today. Who do you want to be on the other side? Who do you want to be on the other side? It's only your decision. Until then, you'll feel like it's a risk because you'd rather be where you are because it's safe and familiar. This is the human condition. How do we get people to come into their true power, their sovereignty, claim their lives? They have to actually decide what would stop them deciding? They don't know who they are. They don't know who they are. And actually, they'd rather tread water in absolute discomfort, human nature, than make that choice. Isn't that the biggest shame on the planet? I talk to you about world stuff because, the imbalances in our society are not causing narcissism necessarily, but it's an environment that is allowing this to thrive. The funny thing about, it's not funny, but like the irony of it is everyone here is a consumer. Every dollar you spend, you choose you don't choose with taxes and gas and things. There are some things you can't change right now, but every other dollar you spend, you're the powerful one. You're the boss of every company. Because every place you put your money, time and attention, every advert you watch, everything you give your energy to is fueling something in this universe. It all matters. So don't feel disempowered if you think you've got low finances. Every dollar you spend as a consumer creates the companies. So you're like an investor. You sit here in your life and you can choose to, I used to see myself like that. I started seeing myself like that. I was like, what do I want to invest in? Time, money, energy. Like an investor, what companies don't I agree in that I'm not going to put money into? Where am I going to put it? And every dollar I spent somewhere that made something, I was like, well, I am now fueling this in the world. Everyone here, if you think there's thousands of people here, If they spent $1 a day, that's thousands a day. How much a year? You are fueling an economy. When they're telling you about the economy, they want it to crash because it keeps you in this dynamic of fear rather than power. You're the boss of the companies, not them. They can't exist without you. You're the boss of the narcissist, not them. They can't exist without you. So who are you? Who would you be without the narcissist? If you want to join Soul and there's still time, I'm going to close the doors very soon. Lots of love, guys. I'll speak to you soon.